so much for coming out here today.
We can just keep this clear.
I have the black one. You wear that, I'm wearing the black.
My name is Robert Jareski. I'm a volunteer with CODEPINK, the feminist and anti-militarist organization. We've been organizing since South Africa introduced their application at the World Court in December of 2023 to protect Palestinians. Also, we're here because this week, or just last week, was the opening of the 79th General Assembly, where diplomats from around the world are converging on New York City to discuss the urgent matters of the day. And I could think of no more urgent matter than the threatened erasure of the Palestinian people, both in the world, both in Gaza and in the West Bank.
Yes.
So we've seen for months the United Nations Security Council, which is tasked with ensuring international peace and stability. The United States government has repeatedly blocked ceasefire resolutions. And so we're asking the General Assembly, which has the power and the obligation to use Uniting for Peace, a resolution that we, and which is perpetually open now to address Palestine-Israel issues, to use their power to enforce the World Court provisional measures. One of those measures is to ensure the provision of aid at scale from every source to the Palestinian people of Gaza.
Yes!
The Palestinian people of Gaza are facing a high risk of famine. This was the finding of Refugees International September 12th report, where they debunked the claims of the Israeli government to be providing aid. Israel has provided an average of 85 trucks a day through August. The insufficient amount of aid that existed prior to October 7th was 500 trucks a day. So 85 trucks a day that Israel is delivering is woefully insufficient and is in fact starving an entire population of Gaza. So all of us have recognized the atrocities that have been committed over the last 11 months in Gaza. We've seen children being shot with snipers, by snipers. We've seen the destruction of the water infrastructure, the food infrastructure. We've seen the bombing of hospitals, schools, even cemeteries. The very memory of Palestine is the target. The very existence of Palestine and their history is the target. And our government has facilitated it. We have 6 very informed speakers here at this press conference. We will not hear about the atrocities in the New York Times. Every day we go to Al Jazeera and see 2 dozen Palestinian people have been killed. No mention of it in the New York Times, in the corporate media. So these speakers today will bring to you information that we're all need to remember the Palestinians who are being targeted, who are suffering. And we need to spread the word, and we need to let the United Nations member states know that they have the power and the obligation to enforce international law and protect the Palestinian people.
He has it turned on. Yes.
Somebody walked by earlier and said the hostages. I just want to briefly address the hostages. And the 18,000 detainees without charges in Israeli jails where torture, rape, insufficient food are being imposed on them, they're being exposed to this. All of these people should be released as a result of a deal. It's the hostages, it's 18,000 Palestinians without charge. It's the Palestinian population in Gaza, the entire population being held hostage.
Yes.
Ceasefire.
We need a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire now.
Permanent ceasefire now. Ceasefire now.
So we're here asking the UN General Assembly for three things. An arms embargo on Israel.
Yes. Yes.
Enforce international law, including imposing the provisional measures that the World Court issued to protect the Palestinians from starvation. And an economic embargo on Israel.
Legally required.
It is legally required. As Craig Mokaber, the former director of New York City based Office for the Commission of Human Rights, has very lucidly outlined in his recent paper, BDS is legally required.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask my friend, my colleague, who's also gone on visits to these missions with us, Safed Katovic, to come up and speak for some time. He's a peace activist. He is the director for UN operations of Justice for All, and he's also the former ambassador to the UN for Bosnia, deputy ambassador for Bosnia to the UN during the genocide in the 1990s. So, Safi, would you please come up?
Thank you.
Free Gaza now.
Free Gaza now!
Free Palestine now.
Free Palestine now!
No, those words are not anti-Semitic.
No.
No, those words are not against human consciousness.
No.
Those words are an affirmation of our humanity.
Yes.
Yes.
So I begin with the words of peace. Salam alaikum. Peace. Shalom alaikum. And the many myriad of ways we say peace. May the peace of heavens be upon the earth. Peace for who? Peace for all. Peace for all. All of us. All of us who have been created in the image of God according to some scripture, children of God according to another scripture, and fused with the divine spirit and ennobled according to the Muslim scripture. Not one of us is lesser than the other.
That's right.
Just this past weekend, my organization, Justice for All, we are a human rights organization that has its origins in the genocide in my ancestral Bosnia and Herzegovina committed against the Bosniak Muslim people. I'm a survivor of that genocide. I lost many family members in that genocide. And I can tell you, without doubt, what is happening in Gaza is genocide, with or without the ICJ rulings.
Yes. Right. Yes.
Hold it like this. Thank you. Sorry about that. Just this past weekend, in Chicago at our headquarters and in Toronto on Sunday, we honored a person whose name is Her Excellency Dr. Pandor. Dr. Pandor is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of South Africa. That was the point person for bringing the case against Israel in the International Court of Justice. She right now is working as a professor. In case you didn't know, there is a new government in South Africa as a result of the recent elections. And of course, there's a changing of positions in terms of who's in which position. But one of the things that we are here today to do is to remind South Africa, to celebrate South Africa's courage and strength to speak out for issues of justice, against genocide, and against apartheid. And nobody can tell South Africa what apartheid is.
That's right.
It is shameful that there are some within the media, some within circles of think tanks and policymakers that have the audacity to tell South Africa what apartheid looks like or what it doesn't look like. But we're here to say, stay the course. Stay the course. The people of the world are with you. You are gaining the moral mantle of leadership of the entire earth, and you cannot stop now. For to do so would be to betray the legacy of Nelson Mandela, who said on numerous occasions, the freedom of South Africa is never complete until the freedom of Palestine is complete.
That's right.
And for 75 years, we've been waiting for that freedom to take place. Now, with regard to the General Assembly, I did do some work in the Bosnian mission for 10 years during the time of genocide here at the UN, often at loggerheads with the UN administration, who was very slow to act, and their peacekeeping missions left much to be desired in terms of how they were implemented. But the Secretary General now at the United Nations is saying what is happening in Gaza is genocide. We are losing our United Nations protected workers who are providing health and humanitarian aid and health assistance to the people of Gaza in untold numbers in terms of any previous operations. The outgoing president of the General Assembly, Dennis Francis, during whose tenure this past year, Palestine has a seat at the table, finally, in the General Assembly, 75 years, has indicated in his outgoing remarks the other day that the United Nations General Assembly needs to continue to step up its game, and yes, we can fill in the gaps of a Security Council that is paralyzed by geopolitics. So we're here to tell the General Assembly, you can do more, and you must do more. And you must continue the course even under the new leadership that is the new presidency of the General Assembly. It is ironic, it is indeed tragic that the Palestinian people can have a seat, finally, at the General Assembly, but the very same Palestinian leadership cannot go across the street in many parts of the West Bank, let alone not in Gaza, because they're not allowed to move by checkpoints that disallow the movement of the leaders of nations from one location to another. This has to come to an end. At the end of the day, what can be done? The answer is a lot more, but to do what we've been doing and push it further. They say that there is two things required to make a diamond, and we'd love to make diamonds in the world. One is pressure, and the other is time. We have no time. Pressure has to be ramped up in every way, shape, and form, non-violently, to bring an end to the genocide, to hold the war criminals accountable, and to continue to make sure that nations like South Africa are continuing to champion the cause of the Palestinian people. Peace and justice is coming, but we have to work towards it together more so than ever before. Thank you. God bless you for all your work, your struggle, and for the great work of CODEPINK.
Nonviolent pressure.
Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. So, John McSad is a member of Veterans for Peace, and I'd like if he would share a few words. He's one of the endorsers of Veterans for Peace, one of the endorsers of this effort. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Rob. I'm also with World Beyond War, who some of you probably know. Take a minute to share my thoughts. Lately, I've been thinking about the abolitionists in our country prior to the 1860s. These people knew that the institution of slavery was immoral. They knew treating other human beings as property was wrong. They knew oppressing another group of people was dehumanizing for both the oppressed and the oppressors. They knew that imprisoning and brutalizing people was wrong. They knew there were no castes or hierarchies, and that all people were entitled to the same unalienable rights. That all people deserved sovereignty, dignity, respect, and justice. They knew the system as it existed was immoral. They worked to convince the rest of society of this self-evident truth. They worked to make illegal what they knew was immoral. I know at times it can feel like that we are not making a difference through the opposition of what we know as immoral. The occupation, the apartheid, the ethnic cleansing, and genocide of the Palestinian people by the Israeli state. But we are making a difference. The tide is changing. False hopes and insincere words are in the past, and there is no going back. Millions of us are protesting around the world.
Millions and millions.
The vast majority of humanity is on the right side of this issue. We now have ICJ rulings and ICC actions that support us. International and Israeli human rights organizations are with us. Governments around the world clearly see the lies of Western propaganda. The last bastion of settler colonialism is on life support. It is our job to pull the plug on it so that the Palestinian people may enjoy the peace and justice they have longed for and were always entitled to. As was said, the answer is to keep doing what we are doing. Every day, we chip away at this 76-year-old brutal institution. We are today's abolitionists. We know the apartheid, ethnic cleansing, war crimes, brutality, and genocide of the Israeli state is morally wrong. Of course, these atrocities are also violations of international law. So we have international law on our side. Most governments of the world are with us, and more are joining every day. There are only a few powerful holdouts left, and one is our own government. It is clear that our government will not do the right thing on its own. Therefore, it is our responsibility to do what we can to pressure our government that funds, arms, and supports the horrors that we are witnessing every day to relent, to finally acknowledge the rights and sovereignty of all people. This is a battle of wills, but we are on the right side and will prevail. So as surely as slavery's days were numbered 165 years ago, the days of oppression of the Palestinian people are numbered. Just like the movement prevailed in the 19th century to end slavery in the United States, just like the movement prevailed in the 20th century to end apartheid in South Africa, this brutal occupation, and we will fail. We are bending the moral arc of the universe toward justice. The people will have to drag our government kicking and screaming, but ultimately we will bring them to the right side of history. Then, and only then, will we have peace. Thank you.
Long live John Brown. Long live Frederick Douglass.
Sarah, Naturi is a member of Move the Money, which has been doing amazing work to expose the cost of war to Americans. And if you come up and speak, thank you so much.
Move the money.
Thanks very much. I'm with Move the Money, New York City,
Move the money.
which is dedicated to getting a city council resolution that says our congressional delegation has to vote down excessive Pentagon spending and move that money to the things that our city needs. Our under an austerity budget. CUNY is being cut, the community college is cut extensively, K-12 is being cut. There isn't enough money for NYCHA, and most of that money is federal. Where is all the money? And we're paying high taxes. Where is all that money going? That money is going to the Pentagon. So Move the Money is about making those connections, that it's not just a municipal issue, it's at the very top of the government, and our city leadership, if they are real leaders, has to say that we know where the money's going. There is enough money in this country to fix NYCHA, to make the subways run on time and not have rats all over them, to have decent health care. ACA is great, but it's very expensive. Any of you who have looked at the plans, those premiums are very high. Why are we the only advanced country in the world that doesn't have universal health care? Because the money's going to the military. So we are out there to make these connections for people. We also we're a coalition of over 60 groups. Many of them are not peace groups, because we want to make that connection. If you're working on housing, there's a reason there's a problem with housing. If you're working on the environment, why isn't there funding for green? The U.S. military is the single largest institutional polluter in the world. You can only imagine the environmental devastation in Gaza. So we are here to make those connections between the social justice groups and for people. See me afterwards. I have this handy little pen which shows you both what the U.S. spends on the military compared to others. What portion of the U.S. discretionary budget goes to the military as opposed to education, housing, transit, health care, anything that individuals need. So if you would like to, if there are people that you can distribute, come see me. I have plenty of them. Thanks very much.
Everybody gets a pen while supplies last.
Move the
money.
Move the money. From war to our communities. Move the money.
Yes.
So I'd like to ask a member of Naturi Karta, Rabbi Weiss, to come and share a few words for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
With the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His message, and inshallah so bring peace to the world and sanctify His name. Amen. It is a very, very big honor to be able to address such distinguished people who are standing up unintimidated by the pressure, which is one of the main reasons I think that you don't find so many other people with heart and soul, that we have many, many people who would be outspoken if it wouldn't be for the fear of the attacks of humanity, that they are in support of terrorism, in support of anti-Semitism. And therefore, it is one of the issues that we are as Jews, because we are Jews, clarify and to explain that the whole concept of this Zionist state of Israel that they refer to themselves as a Jewish state is a fraud. This has nothing, the establishment of the state of Israel has nothing to do with a Jewish religion.
Right.
Jewish religion is a religion of 3,000 years to be subservient to God, to uphold the covenant that we made with God, to keep the Sabbath, to keep the kosher, to keep the laws of the Torah. We follow it exactly till today. There is no difference from today to 3,000 years ago. Zionism is a political nationalist movement that started around 140 years ago. This is a total transformation from subservience to God, from religion to nationalism. It is a flawed, selfish, political attempt of establishing sovereignty. And that sovereignty, not only is it totally not Judaism, but the way of establishing it in a land that was inhabited by another people entails killing, stealing, oppressing. Let us go to the root of this concept of the so-called Jewish state. When you will ask people, many people who are involved in supporting this state of Israel, you'll ask them, why are you doing this? And they'll tell you, well, where was God to protect us? Where is God? So they spew blasphemy. The whole root of creating a so-called Jewish state, ironically, sadly, is rooted in scoffing, at laughing, belittling the Jewish people who turn to God for protection. They say, no, where's God? We need a gun. And in of itself, the root state is really heresy and a contradiction to my religion of 3,000 years, where we always look to God. We believe God is the ruler of the world. He's compassionate, and He is the one who we look to for help. We may not understand His ways. We do not understand the tsunami. We do not understand the plague. But we understand that we don't question that there is a ruler to the world, and it's His world. He does what He wants. And He's compassionate. We turn and plead, and we pray to Him constantly for protection, for compassion, for good for the world. As it's coming in 2 weeks from now, or 3, it's coming the high holidays, where we're going to say in our prayers that He should put in the hearts and minds of the leaders that they should strive for peace, that they should strive harmony. They should strive that the world should live together in peace, and that's our prayers. Zionism is, in its essence, contradictory to Judaism. But since 2,000 years ago, since the destruction of the temple, we are expressly forbidden to reestablish, to create any Jewish sovereignty, and we have obeyed this. For 2,000 years, we went through the Crusades, the Inquisitions. We never attempted to establish a state. Who were the fathers, the ones who made this state? Theodor Herzl, Ben-Gurion, Chaim Weizmann, all these people who did not practice the religion. They wanted a national home, and they simply masquerade in the facade of my religion. They use the Star of David. They use the name Israel in order to intimidate and silence anybody who wants to stop what they're doing when impeding God's human beings, the people of Palestine. When you say anything to the say, oh, how dare you? Don't you see in the Bible? And then they have the second weapon, their nuclear weapon, which is called anti-Semitism. What is the word anti-Semitism? My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My mother's family was from Poland. My father is from Hungary. And my father escaped when the Nazis came into Hungary. His parents were killed, were burnt in Auschwitz. They were gassed at Auschwitz. The Nazis were anti-Semitic. They wanted to eradicate Jews. The world, thankfully, turned around and said, we made a red line. If somebody is going to attack a people because they're black, they're racist. That's wrong. They're going to attack people because of their religion. If they're Jewish, they're anti-Semitic. So this word is a word that's powerful, and it's to accomplish on this world. Comes the Zionists. For their selfish reasons, they take that word and they make a state in a land that's not theirs, And they turn around, and if you dare say anything against them, they say you are anti-Semitic. They are nullifying the word anti-Semitism. They are making it powerless. How dare they take the ashes of my grandparents and the millions of Jews who are killed and nullify what happened over there by using it totally irrelevantly. Now they're going to come, if something happens, God forbid it should never happen. And somebody's going to say, hey, it's anti-Semitic. They'll say, it's the boy who cried wolf. What does that mean? It's a joke because we see what the Zionists do, and that's definitely, and the ones who are opposing them are not anti-Semitic. But we are living and breathing and seeing this, standing up for what's righteous. They're getting them suspended. The professors are losing their tenure, and on and on and on. It's shamelessly the governments are putting through laws that are senseless. It is an insult to common sense, to logic, to call this anti-Semitic. And therefore, we as Jews, because we are Jews, as God requires us to sanctify his name and to speak up when Judaism is being desecrated, when people are being killed, we are therefore here. And we will not only here, but in the streets of Jerusalem, in the streets of London, invariably, around the world, wherever there is a very religious Jewish community, they stand, they get beaten. They get killed. We get a. That's why, because we are standing up and telling the world Judaism is to be subservient to God. It is a religion. Internationalism, a selfish, flawed political movement, unacceptable. We are pleading with the United Nations. We are here now at the week where the presidents are coming from around the world. It was the United Nations that for decades gave South Africa the right to exist as a dignified country under apartheid. Their ambassador was called His Excellency. Nelson Mandela was 27 years in prison, and he was considered a terrorist. The world body can make a mistake. They made a mistake when they ratified of Israel, and the rabbis of Palestine pleaded with them. Chief Rabbi Dushinsky, the true chief rabbi, nothing with the farce called the Zionist rabbinate, the ones that are leading the community in Palestine. He said, we furthermore wish to express our definite opposition to a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. This was in 1947. It's the United Nations document. This is the true Judaism. So we are pleading with the United Nations, correct a wrong that came out of your United Nations. You are the ones who established this. You are the ones who made this incorrectly. A part of grassroots, because of CODEPINK, people like CODEPINK, people are grassroots and students. Today, nobody would establish an apartheid state and be accepted in the United Nations. Today, nobody should accept the existence of the occupation of the people of Palestine. It has to be a free Palestine. We are pleading with the world leaders. You are given a lofty position. God bless you. Use it right. So you should be able to face your maker. You should be able to face your children and grandchildren. God will help, inshallah. Soon in our days, we will see with God's compassion a free Palestine, a free Gaza, a world where we can live together, Jews, Muslims, Christians, we can live in peace and power. Help us get that. Assalamu alaikum.
Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. The state of Israel must go. Judaism, yes. Zionism, no. The occupation must go.
Thank you, Rabbi. Our next speaker and our second to last speaker is Brian Terrell. He's a member of Catholic Worker, a longtime activist and Catholic Worker is also an endorser of today's events. Brian, thanks.
Well, thank you.
I'm surprised and honored to be asked to talk to you all. Many friends here. I'll tell a story. In 1992, I took part in something called the Walk for a Peaceful Future in the Middle East. And this was international people around the world. We were attempting to walk from Haifa to Jerusalem with a message. When we got to the Green Line at Megiddo, we were pretty much attacked by Israeli border police, and a bunch of us were in jails. I was with 30 other internationals in a jail in the town of Tiberias. We're held for 3 days before we recognized quickly that we were the only adults in that jail. They were children. They were boys. Administrative detention, no lawyers, no charges. Their parents could not visit them. How long they were there. Their families. And I really hope and pray that they have found nonviolent, constructive ways to deal with their raging trauma. They're all adults now, of course. And how many of them are dead? But if they have not nonviolently, it saddens me, but I can't blame them. Can't blame them. Now, in 1967, the summer of 1967, I can remember as a child in American cities. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech, The Other America. And he said this about the violence in American streets then. He said, in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And he was not complaining that it's inevitable. And so he said, in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by, and as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrence of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantees of riot prevention. As long as Israel postpones justice, it will be happening again and again and again. I think of the place of the merchants of death have been mentioned a few times. General Eisenhower was not a pacifist, but he recognized the complex. That with all the profit in war, that we would no longer as a country be manufacturing weapons to fight wars, but be manufacturing wars to sell weapons. And that has been the key of U.S. foreign policy ever since. In the 1980s, I was in Central America, in several countries, and I could see there that the whole foreign policy with Central America was not to make peace, but the call meant more war. And the same thing, I've been, to Bahrain, and I've been to, in the years of the occupation of Afghanistan, I was there 7 times. I visited Iraq between the wars, and I'm seeing that this is really where this is caused, and it's here. Dr. King also said shortly before he was killed, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world is the United States government. That's right. So the responsibility is ours. Now, just yesterday afternoon, I'm here in New York just for a few days, but I was invited to come to the Union Square, Israelis for a ceasefire. And solidarity and how much we have our differences, of course, but how much is there. And hearing the a woman whose child was killed, an Israeli woman who's here in New York now, lost a child on the October 7th. And you cannot, by sheer mathematics, the violence is on the side of Israel. No question about it. But we cannot measure human suffering mathematically. Walter Miller wrote a great science fiction novel, A Canton for Leibowitz, in 1960. And he was writing about a time, a dystopian future, much like ours. And he considered this question. He said, what is to believe? Or does it matter at all? When mass murder has been answered with mass murder, rape with rape, hate with hate, there's no longer much meaning in asking whose axe is bloodier. Evil on evil, piled with evil. And at this time, than ever before, we have to get rid of the idea that people living in peace and sharing resources and respecting each other's customs and allowing everyone to live in peace and to enjoy their share of the goods of this earth is not a utopian dream. That is not idealism. That is realism. That is the height of pragmatism. As you look at pragmatism, is looking at the world as it is, seeing what the possibilities are, and seeing what has to be done. And the most arrogant of fantasies is that we can keep going the way we're going. We do not have much time. The change has to happen now, and we here in this country have the biggest responsibility of anyone on earth to make that change.
Our last speaker, if I'm not mistaken, is a Jerusalem-born poet, Farid Bitar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I wrote a poem today about Gaza and deliverance, and I called it Disintegration Erased. But before then, I wrote a poem about a journalist who was talking on, like, what the fuck wrong with that guy? He's not even crying. And he was talking about 27 members of a family, and the building fake.